from the United States of America. We understand the details that we want to see. We are talking with them, hammering out certain details, fighting for them somewhere. Coalition from the Europeans, the security guarantees, is coalition of the willing and guaranteed membership in the EU. For us, it's indeed security guarantee, not only political guarantee, geopolitical guarantee as well. So for us, the date of EU membership is of utmost importance, and I'm not talking now about date, year, etc., because of course it will be decided by the leaders of the EU, but for us it's very important that others don't decide this, that Russia doesn't decide it, or others who are blocking us. Even certain members of the EU, you know, they block it because of political reasons, not because this or that reform in Ukraine has not been implemented. I am for justice. Then, speaking about sensitive issues that we've discussed with the United States of America, yes, Donbass is the issue that has not been solved. We have different views. The nuclear plant that was occupied by the Russians is not working. It has been destroyed, but it must work. It must produce energy. It's our station. It's our right. That issue has not been solved. The issue of money, I have expressed my view openly today to our colleagues and leaders. I believe that reparation loan, it must be, this issue must be solved positively, because this issue is not only about financial support for Ukraine, but in the first quarter of the next year, but it's also an issue of different nature. We don't want this instrument to stay in the Russian hands. We really don't want that, but we believe that they will do everything to block it.
Here in the middle.
Mr. President, good afternoon, Freedom Channel. Of course, my question is to you, Mr. President, but I would really want our colleagues from other media from other countries to hear it. We have a great presence of powerful media here. We in Ukraine have an online website that shows which missiles and drones fly and when where. Now, as we speak, 10 drones are targeting the city of Dnipro, and a missile is targeting Zaporizhia. That's a missile that is destroying houses. The city of Odessa, a city with 1 million population, was without power for 3 days in a row. Ukrainian railway are switching for diesel locomotives because there is no power generation. And now my question, Mr. President, Russia has allocated 160 billion for the war next year. Do our partners understand, following today's conversation, you say that they perceive this issue politically, they don't want to wage war. Do they understand the radical mood in Russia and this spit in the face of all the world from Putin for peace proposals, for the desire to end this war? Thank you. Thank you for the question. Thank you for you remind the world which conditions Ukraine is fighting in, because it's difficult to call it life. Ukraine is fighting for life. Speaking about air defense, now we're talking about air defense, certain missiles. I don't want to spell out which systems have deficits, but there are certain systems that have no missiles for them. I have discussed that with partners today, that we can have long discussions, but every day something hits something flies over somewhere, and these things must be shut down. So either our partners give us licenses or missiles, or they help us with money, and then we procure it on our own. There is no other way. Does Europe understand that? I think it does, but when Russians allocate such record budget for the war against us, not anybody else, of course, all of that industry will have to be fed in the future on a permanent basis. You can't just allocate money for the next year. What will they do?
How's it going?
next with these bloated military companies. They must be fed constantly, and they will have to support their war effort permanently because these are huge revenues. So why am I mentioning this? Because yes, there is Ukraine, but when it all gets bloated, it will have to be directed somewhere. And now the question is not about where, but the main thing is that it will be directed against something, so that somebody will also have hits. I don't want to intimidate anybody, but everybody must be ready, that's it. And the last thing, does Europe understand it? Now, a great catalyst of that is, do our partners understand that or not? We'll see.
No, please. Here.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to ask you, I'm Leonora Klint from the Danish Børsen. When do you need the EU leaders to take a final decision on financing for Ukraine? Would they be able to postpone the decision into, let's say, January or later on? We know that you need the money in the second quarter of 2026, but when do you need the actual decision to be made? Thank you.
Our partners are informed that the decision can be taken until the end of the year, okay? Your news?
Till the end of this year.
Till the end of this year, of course. It's important.
To remind our partners. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Sasha Vakulina from Euronews. Mr. President, the question is a follow-up also on the Berlin meeting. I would like to know how would you assess the progress in the diplomatic side of trying to find a settlement to end Russia's war in Ukraine, and if you also plan anytime soon the meeting with Donald Trump, and whether you think that the commitments that were voiced by the European leaders could actually replace Article 5 and NATO accession. Thank you.
There is progress in our dialogue with the American side. Why? Because in our dialogue with America we had a couple of formats, a couple of documents, and I believe that in our dialogue we have progress. We do have progress. The question is that this is a part of the negotiating process. Then the United States, they take the amendments of certain points, and then they have discussions with the Russian side. So as of now, I don't have the feedback about our most recent progress, because I can't say what we have there and what we don't. But in the coming days, we'll definitely be able to say it, and I think that the frequency of our meetings is also part of the progress. For now, I perceive it this way. Maybe there is more optimism here than realism, but these are the realities. We live under the conditions where we fight for ourselves, and we believe that we will succeed in everything. Speaking about security guarantees and the presence of the European leaders, we do not believe that Europe must substitute the United States of America, and this is the same attitude we have to the security guarantees from the United States of America, Article 5-like, and then there will be no need for European support. No, these are different things, and no matter the signals that Russia transmit, we understand that they want to exclude the presence of the Europeans. This must not be allowed to happen, because we understand that if, in case of recurrence of Russian aggression, we don't talk that. We don't say that in the event of recurrence of Russian aggression, Europe will have to fight against Russia. No, we don't say that, but European presence will decrease the probability of Russia attacking again. The number of countries, the number of flags, national flags, the number of countries in the coalition of the willing, in any format, no matter the number of the countries, it will bear high risks to start the aggression against Ukraine again. So for us, European presence is important. Now, when we're talking about backstop of the United States of America, we're talking about intelligence sharing, we're talking about strong security guarantees from the United States of America that we're counting on. As of now, we cannot reveal all the details, but when we're talking about Article 5 of the NATO Treaty, we understand that this is a response to aggression, and we will be covering those details with our partners. And what we understand is legally binding article, must be legally binding article from the United States of America that must be supported by the Congress of the United States.
Speaking of the United States, Wall Street Journal, please.
Thanks. Nice segue. Lawrence Norman, Wall Street Journal. 2 questions, please, Mr. President. First of all, you called the security guarantees that the US had offered a first draft in Berlin. The Americans are saying they will send it to the Senate to be ratified and make it legally binding. So what is it precisely that you still need to hear from the Americans on the backstop? What does it lack to turn it into from a first draft into something you're happy with or you're satisfied with? Secondly, on the loan, how important is it for you to get the promise of the loan now for your negotiations with the US? We know that you're under pressure on territory in the Donbass and Donetsk from the Trump administration. Do you need that leverage in those talks to show them that you have the funding to keep fighting?
Undoubtedly, you're right that all these questions are intertwined. Of course, you're right that all these questions are intertwined. Can you hear me now? Yes, all of these questions are interconnected. Of course, money is needed so that Russia and anybody else in the world does not use these Russian assets as a leverage against us. We want these assets so that it is not a part of the negotiating process, and we want this part to support us. We are more confident at the negotiating table if we have this instrument. And answering the question, how will you withstand for 1 more year, then you will immediately have the answer, and there will be no such questions. But for now, these questions are in the air. We want to remove everything that's unnecessary and focus on real things that can stop Putin, really, and where we really have difficulties in negotiations. So if there is no question of finances, then there will be questions about Donbass. And these things are intertwined with our partners. East and security guarantees. I believe that the end of the war in general, not only land, but end of the war in general, is connected with security guarantees, because without security guarantees, it doesn't mean that it will be an end, and there will be certain pause, and then Russia, if it is ready to come with aggression again, it will come. So we must have guarantees that will speak to everybody, Ukrainian people, investments, American people, to everybody, to people who live in Ukraine, to people who want to come back to Ukraine, to people who want to invest in Ukraine, to Europeans who want to see Ukraine as part of the EU. These are important things for everybody. Which security guarantees will Ukraine have post-war? Will post-war Ukraine have?
All right, what you were listening to right there were some of the remarks coming in from Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukraine's president there, answering questions from members of the media. We are just past the top of the hour here, 8:04 on the East Coast and 5:04 on the West Coast. A big thank you to my colleague, Karel Lahara, who has been here